You want a man to help you? No problem. One will clock in soon. This happened 16 years ago. When I was about 20 years old. I was a department manager in a big box hardware store. People said I acted 25. But I didn't even look 18. As a young female, I saw my fair amount of sexual discrimination. But the worst always came from women. This is the story of one such woman. I managed the paint department. I had 3 associates who worked for me. They loved me as a boss because I bought them a department radio. Took the shifts they didn't want. Worked Friday close and Saturday mid so my 2 younger guys could have time to have fun on Friday nights, and the older gentlemen took early Saturday mornings so they could sleep off their fun. In trade, I gave the older gentleman his ideal schedule. My team was awesome. One day I was in the department alone and a lady came up and asked me where she could find the 5-gallon oil-based primer. I let her know that my location didn't carry the 5-gallon size of that primer. She told me that we did and said that it was shelved, right there, while suggesting I was too stupid to remember. Her husband gave me an apologetic look. I let her know that another location had what she was looking for and that it was in fact in that exact location in that store. She let me know how stupid she thought I was for thinking she could mix up stores. Then, she began yelling and loudly insisting that I get a man out there to help her because she wanted someone competent and not a stupid little girl. Her husband actually tried to step in at that point, but I just smiled and let her know that a male paint associate would be clocking in any minute and that I would be happy to direct him to her as soon as he is on the clock. I smiled and waited for Joe to clock in. Joe was great and I knew he could handle this or I wouldn't have put him in this situation. But Joe was also new. He was learning things super quick, but still relied on the rest of us for help. When I saw Joe walking up, I quickly said that there was a customer who needed help. I let him know that she was upset and asked him to do his best to answer her questions. Joe walked up to the lady. She said, "Finally, a man." She asked her question, explained where the product should be, and waited. Joe calmly let her know that he had never seen us carry 5-gallon size of oil-based primer, but said he could check with the paint department manager. She was happy and loudly said she was happy to be getting some real help. Joe walked up to me and started to ask me about 5-gallon oil-based primers. The lady quickly walked up and asked him what he was doing. He turned and said, "This is my manager. She runs this department." The husband laughed out loud. The woman stormed off, and I bought Joe lunch. I had a really similar experience. I worked in a large appliance store and an older woman came in to buy a washing machine. I was in my early 20s and looked very young. Anyway, I went up to help her and she stated she would like a man to help her please. I said okay, and went to get one of my male colleagues. I told him she had requested a man. The whole way through the sale when she asked a question he'd say, "Hang on. Let me just check with the expert and come and chat with me for a moment." He knew very well what the answer was. In fact, he had trained me. But he was a golden soul. Same thing always happened to me. Working in sporting goods department of a certain blue big store chain. My male coworkers recognized it and always had a fun time with it. When they asked me to get a man to help them with a gun, my coworkers always made a point to ask me the question after they were asked before responding to the customer, even though they knew the answer to the question. I had some awesome coworkers that had my back. That was awesome. Brilliant work, smiley face. And good for you spotting Joe's lunch as a reward, smiley face. I loved it when I was working and people refused my help because I'm a woman. I worked at GameStop. Anytime they demand my store manager, I would go get her with glee. She was a 50-plus-year-old woman who didn't even really play games. Which meant that not only did they have to deal with a different woman, they were losing my 20-plus years gaming experience. Rolling on the floor laughing. I managed a menswear store. Didn't matter how old the man I was working with was. Could be a part-time high school kid. People always went up to him first or straight up refused my help, stating they'd prefer a man. We called it guy in a tie syndrome. Well played, op. Any bets on how long the husband was sleeping on the couch after that? I'm an attorney and also a woman. Yep. They let us do that these days. When I have a deposition, I will set out a pitcher of water and water glasses in the conference room because pretty much all of what happens in a deposition is talking. And people get thirsty. On one such occasion, I was doing this after I had already brought my notebook, exhibits, binders, and computer into the room. It was just my chair that was empty, because I was setting out water. All the other attorneys, and the witness, were men who had never met me before. NB. The court reporter was a woman, and she knew who I was. As I was finishing up with the water, one of my all-time favorite opposing counsel, a real stand-up guy, and total choosy beggar, says something like, "Don't you have anything better than water, sweetheart? Like soda or coffee or something?" I specifically remember the "sweetheart" part because I wanted to deck him. "No, we don't have soda or coffee for you. There's a soda machine down the hall. We can wait for you to go get your own beverage of choice." He declined, and then proceeded to complain about the amenities. Mind you, it was me personally, not my employer, providing these things, at my own personal cost, as a courtesy, and started in on feeling inconvenienced that the deposing attorney, that's me, is not there yet. This is when I realized that because I was setting out the water and glasses, he thought I was my assistant, and therefore, beneath him. So gross. So I smile, say nothing, and sit in the empty chair so we can get started. I start to open my notebook of exhibits and he asks me if I should be touching these things because they might be exhibits and get all out of order. I inform him they are indeed exhibits and ask if he and his client are ready. He gives me some passive-aggressive response about being ready just as soon as my boss graces us with his presence. I tell him my boss will not be coming. He is not needed here. Without waiting for his response, I tell the court reporter we're ready. Bless her. She's on it. Thank you, Ms. My last name. I'll now swear in the witness. It took him that long to realize the attorney's name on the pleadings might belong to a woman. I won that case. And, just for the record, my assistant is a woman. And she could mop the floor with that guy. To bastardize a Jack Nicholson quote, "Sexism and elitism can shampoo my crotch." I get used as the guy in these kinds of scenarios a lot. We get a few customers at the grocery store I work at that specifically request a man help them outside if the bagger at the register happens to be a girl. There's no scenario like in this one though. I just get a customer dumped on me that I either need to worry about being creepy or that they need, like, a lot of something heavy. Like half of the time the girls I sub in for are more than capable of doing whatever task I end up with. But the customers in question doesn't trust them to do it. I always assume when going into the hardware store that if I need help I need to look for a woman working. My grandpa, a woodworker, taught me that that's who you go to if it's an option. That's how you get the right answer that isn't prideful. Now that I've grown up a little I recognize how rare that advice is. Especially coming from a 70-year-old. She painted herself into a corner by demanding a man and assuming you weren't knowledgeable. I worked briefly at a hardware store, and ended up knowing very little about the products. But I had the customer service skills that some of the other employees lacked. I've had a few older women come and ask to speak with a man. Since it's a man's area of expertise, I would usually redirect those women to Matt, who would use a screwdriver to pick his nose. I was always more than willing to find my manager who could answer even the most complex questions. But when a customer is rude, the service quality drops drastically. Honest question. Why do women, at least on your experience, face sexual discrimination from other women at work worse than from men? Joe sounds like a great guy. And so do you. You should have had Joe just say, "I'm sorry, ma'am. Perhaps I should just deal with your husband on this matter." My parents used to have 2 small hardware stores in small villages, with the stereotypical older people requesting the male clerk to help them. My father, who was mostly on the floor to answer customers, was always redirecting those people to woman employees, saying things like, "Oh, for paint, Caroline is the best. She will be able to help you out." Not much. I hope a few people learned their lessons. And I can gladly say that me and my 2 brothers will never be asking for a male or female employee at a store, as we were raised in the middle of such situations. I had a woman who could not believe I was a department manager because I was 23 at the time and every other department manager was in their late 50s. She asked me for our cheapest soup, which I brought her to and told her it was split pea soup. She refused to believe me even when I showed her the tag which said how many units we sold a month. Said 0. She then asked for the person in charge in the department, which I said was me. She said, "No, I want to talk to someone who knows what they're doing." I told her to have a nice day and started to continue my work. She went and got the meat department manager, who told her he would help her before bringing her over to me, pointing and telling her, "That's our freezer manager, he can help you find what you need." I waved in the most sarcastic way possible and smiled before she stormed off. There was no gender bias since I'm a guy, but it just goes to show people are stupid and refuse to believe facts in front of their faces, despite the fact that we would have no reason to lie to them. I remember oil paint in the 80s. So glad for modern paints. Great malicious compliance. Wow. You and I have the exact same story, paint department story. I both hate how common this is. Only difference between it was always men who were the worst at my store. I was a jacked femme queer kid that could carry 4 gallons of paint in each arm, which was a fun trick. Contractors would see me do this and try to copy and end up dropping the paint. This always made my day. Anyway, I had a contractor come up. I tried to help him, but her demanded to talk to a man. I was painfully short-staffed and as a part-timer was pulling hours to keep this place running. I have no time or patience for this behavior, so I radio over a dude from another department, explain the situation, and he walls over and seconds later walks over to me to get into info for the contractor about the product from me. This back and forth happens 2 times before the contractor stops, says, "Oh my God," comes up to me, shakes my hand, apologizes and tells me he will buy whatever I think he needs for the project. I'd get calls and men would demand to talk to a man and I'd just hang up. They'd call back, be pissed, and I'd always laugh. OMG. So stupid. I tried to transfer you to a man that knows more about this department. Let me try again. And hang up again. The phone rang again. Same dude. Whoa. Don't hang up. Okay. Hello again. Can you answer my question? Yes. And I did. Saw him later and found everything for him based on our call. I never had this much trouble with women except when they would ask me for colors. For the most neutral beige, I'd hand them green or some other muted color. It looks beige. Compared to this, an inch away. So much malicious compliance at that job. Great story. But the part that shines for me is you, as a manager, giving people the shifts that work best for their lives. That's pure gold. IMHO. I feel so sorry for the husband.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.